Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Freethought. Yeah, we're back. Yeah. So it's nice to be back, and it's nice to be with you, Tercia, my co-host. How the devil are you?
I'm not quite in hell anymore, although yesterday was terribly hot.
Was
But
it?
now it's very mild and we can survive. So, and I'm good.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good.
Eh? Good,
I'm good.
good, excellent. Yeah. Well, if you're in the bottom half of the planet, no wonder you've got summer now. We've got winter, but where I am, it's very, very mild. We've had 15 centigrade today, and we don't get frosts anymore. That's last month. So, yeah. But let's introduce our guest, who you fished
Let's do.
for and hooked. Well done. You've reeled her in. Here she is, Jessie. How the devil are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very well, thanks. How are you both?
Well,
Good. Yeah,
to
yeah,
me,
good.
I just must say that I didn't reel Jessie, and I've known Jessie. We met when you were doing your final year at Stellenbosch University as an occupational
Oh,
therapist.
I
Do you
was so
remember?
young and sweet, yes, and
Yes.
wearing an awful uniform.
And I was also young, and I don't know if I was ever sweet, but I was much younger than I'm now.
Oh, why?
And
Why is that happening?
what happened?
Well, I tried to make you louder, and you went off. It's very, very odd. Speak. Then why does that go? Sorry, I'll turn you back to where you were. Okay, speak. Where have you gone? This is ridiculous.
I'm
You're not
here.
just moving your mouth, are you?
Can you hear me, Jess?
I can hear you, Jessie, but I can't hear Tercia. Speak, Tercia. Speak. Oh, she's gone. It's
Speak. I
obviously a.
am speaking. I'm
Speak.
speaking. I
Well,
am speaking. Okay.
we've lost your picture now. You must have a bandwidth problem down there in the hinterland. And now you're frozen.
Possibly.
So we
Can
might.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, and you're moving. Good. That's an improvement.
Okay.
Excellent.
Good.
Would you like to tell me how
Good.
you? Oh, I think you were starting to tell me how you came across Jessie. Yes. Would you like to
Yes,
carry
it
on
was
with that?
actually towards the.
It's just Jess.
It was the one. Jess, just
Jess.
Jess. The one
Jess.
thing
Okay. Sorry.
I've always regretted. Sorry. The one thing, we all have regrets in our lives, and sometimes they're minor regrets, but they do have a sting in them. And one of the things I regret is that Jess and I began speaking weeks before she finished her studies and then eventually left. So we never really got a chance to talk. But sometimes you meet somebody, and in a very
Yeah.
brief moment, you feel that you're kindred spirits, and that was the
Yes.
feeling
Yes.
that I got when I
Correct.
met Jess.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I sort of kept tabs on her via Facebook, and I'm very grateful that I could do that. And then there was one particular post, Jess, that you made some weeks ago when you got your leave to stay in the UK, or did you get citizenship? Is
Not
that
yet. Hopefully at the end of the year. I got so basically my permanent residency, which is
Hmm.
uh, the thing I've been working for just
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
5 years, and
Yes, that's right. It does take that, and it costs a bit of
yeah,
money too, doesn't
so
it?
it cost
Yeah.
more than a
Yeah.
bit,
Mm.
and a lot of stress, and
Yeah. I've
so
I've
yes,
attended I've attended some of these hearings where you have to answer questions and sing the national anthem and stuff like that.
I'll
That's
be sure to
probably
learn that.
yeah, that's probably your next step, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my next step, but that's at the end of the year. But yeah, it was.
Mm.
It's so
Mm.
I was
and
on a visa, and it's really difficult being on a visa in this country. There's not a lot of freedom, and yeah, you kind of just under somebody else's control, and so now I have my own freedom, and it is
Yes.
glorious and beautiful, and I'm very happy.
Well, welcome. I don't have any officialdom, but I personally welcome you.
Thank you.
Do you have to now support the English rugby team? Or are you still allowed to cheer for the Springboks when they play against?
I absolutely would cheer for the Springboks. That was not a question that has come up in the Life in the UK test. So I'm going to go with yes, I absolutely am. And
Well, we watch
I have it now, so.
do you watch rugby at all? Because you're an occupational therapist. So
yes.
Do you watch rugby at all? Do you have an affinity for the sport?
I used to watch a lot, and then my stepfather left and my knowledge of sport went completely downhill. And now I watch the World Cup and like big important games.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John, I wanted to say we watched the Scotland-England game
I
earlier
know.
tonight.
Well, it was a good one, wasn't it?
It was a good one. And my mom got so angry with me. So it was, the nice thing about watching a game like that is I don't really mind who wins and who loses. Although I would have liked Scotland to win. But when England won by 1 point, it was fine,
It was
and
so
my mom
close.
was so angry. My mom cannot stand Otoje, the England lock. She cannot stand him. She cannot abide the man. She says he's arrogant. She hates him because he's such a good player. She says, I hate him because he's so good.
Well, that's all that matters. That's all that matters to us.
I have such a soft spot for him. And I said to her, Mom, you know what, you're going to hate me, but even when he plays against, I just like, I like something about him. I like the way he plays. Even when he plays against, my mom said, just go home.
Can I focus on Jess a bit now, because I'm curious. I know a bit about what occupational therapy is, but it's probably an out of date concept in my mind. It's I think of it as clay modeling or something. Just it's an activity based.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Enlighten us, Jess.
I mean, to be fair, John, I do usually I recently was told that all we do is basket weaving. So yeah, clay things, fine. That's what we do.
But the idea, I think the idea behind it is to get you physically employed, to take your mind off mental focuses a bit. Is that right?
So occupational therapy is very, very broad. We work across the lifespan and across every physical, mental, anything in between health issue that you might have.
Yes.
And our role is really to enable people to learn and understand what they are doing, what they need to do. So it's occupation based, which is where the clay and basket weaving comes in.
Yes.
We are taking any activity that you are doing. So for us, it's not just your job or your going to school if you're a child. It is taking any activity that you are doing, and we are enabling you to understand it, to be able to do it the best you can, to have the resources you need. So really it's about forming those connections with people, helping them understand what they need and how we can support them.
Yes, but it's different from physio, isn't it? It's not like helping people recover from injuries.
There's a lot of overlap with physio, and so certainly there are parts. I have worked a little bit in a rehab hospital many years ago. There are parts that are helping you recover from an injury or from a stroke, a heart attack, from a motor vehicle accident. I work with children, so usually I'm not involved with like the recovery, but definitely, there is that overlap, and we work very closely, if we are lucky, with physios and speech therapists and the rest of the team, psychologists, music therapists, teachers. So yeah, nurses, obviously, if we're working in a hospital. But yeah, we kind of, occupational therapists, if we were working in a recovering from an injury, we would be looking more at the actual activity that is important to you. So you might be a computer person and sit at your desk for the whole day and have the same injury as a mother who has to carry her children, or a father. And we would potentially be doing different things because your needs and what's important to you is different depending on what your roles are, how you need to be doing things. So, you know, the mom might not necessarily have to be sitting down as much. She might not need to be staring at a screen. She does need to be able to carry her children. Strong enough for that. So it's similar but different.
But you've got a couple of extra words, haven't you, in front of occupational therapy? Sensory integrations. So what is that? Tell us about that.
I always wanted letters after my name. So yes, I've added a couple. So I've now added SI, or sensory integration. So it's been one of the most incredible things I've studied, and kind of informs my daily life and the way I interact with people, and how I help people. So it's very much about kind of how your brain is processing all of the sensory information that is coming to you. So the noise that's coming from, you know, if you're in a crowd, if you're on the tube, there's the screeching noise, which is awful. If all the different lights are coming, so we talk about the 5 senses, which you should all know. And then there's also the vestibular and proprioceptive sense. So that's like your sense of movement, your sense of body awareness, kind of tells you where you are in space. And then there's also interoception, which is all of your internal senses. So understanding when you are hungry, understanding when you might need the toilet, understanding the difference between I'm a little bit hungry and I'm actually getting a little bit angry. How does that feel inside? Angry. So yeah, just kind of how your brain processes it, and how you are able to then have the output and process into the world. So I guess if you think of when you're having to do a task that you need to concentrate on, if you're having to do a maths exam, and you want to be in the zone and you want your brain to be working beautifully, focused, and you have somebody next to you clicking their pencil, click, 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 click. You might become distracted by that. So you might be like, oh, I can't entirely concentrate because that noise, I can't kind of
it's annoying.
Take it out. I can't put it as the background. So I'm now focusing on the noise and I can't concentrate. Or you might have the child in the classroom who needs to get up and move a little bit, or the adult, because we also need to move. And so that's all about the regulation. So we need that regulation. Like a child getting up to move in class they are not trying to be bad. They are not trying to be a distraction. They need more, maybe more movement, or they need to move in a certain way, because that is how they can then regulate and hopefully be able to be paying attention and understand what's going on.
Well, Tercy and I are both teachers, and so we're experienced in meeting children who need to be more active and can't just sit and soak up information. And I mean, when I started teaching all that time ago, the term ADHD hadn't been invented. But nowadays, although we always
It had for
knew that,
boys.
yes, that's right. Yes, we always knew that a class of girls were much more docile. They were much more prepared to just sit and be an audience, whereas a class of boys was just waiting to get out of the chair and go and kick a ball or climb a tree.
Yep, that's.
I want to ask you, Jess.
Girls also
I
like to
remember,
kick balls and climb trees, but yes, boys
Well,
boys are
yeah,
probably more.
exactly. I've fallen into the trap of generalizing.
but let's not feel too guilty about that, because
We
I
didn't
think
know.
there's enough. And Jess, you might correct me here, but I think there's enough evidence that indicates that girls might be slightly better on average than boys at regulating. So whereas most girls probably have the same inclination to climb up trees and kick balls for some reason, and it might be societal, or it might just be the fact that girls on average, and I want to emphasize this is on average, that they their brains are different. And I always joke, my oldest children, the first one is a boy and the next one is the first one girl and a boy, and they're 15 months apart, and I raised them exactly the same, and the differences were there. And there is research that indicates that the girl brain is different. So
Mm.
girls regularly, they might find it easier, especially when they're younger. They might find it easier than a boy of the same age. But I want to ask you about something like I was quite a studious person, but I remember since forever when I listen to anything, and even now, John knows I sit and doodle when I'm listening to our guests. And we had a history teacher, and he insisted that you had to put your pen down, fold your arms, and listen to what he said. And I mean, I loved history, and I enjoyed that teacher, but his classes were torture to me, because I is that, does that have something to do with maybe and I want to ask you about ADHD. John mentioned ADHD. Is there a
Mm.
link between sensory integration and ADHD? And how do we diagnose these things? That is something that I want to ask you about.
Ooh,
I've done some
yes.
reading.
Ooh.
I've done some reading in preparation for tonight about especially sensory integration. And there was one particular test that I read about that is often done. But I'm very curious, especially how do you diagnose younger children? I mean, I can understand 10, 11, 12-year-olds. You can ask them questions, but then is it not still a problem that, I mean, it's a very subjective response. How do you diagnose sensory integration problems? And how empirical is it? And how trustworthy is it? And what are the links to ADHD? And there's my 3 questions.
How do you diagnose it?
Yeah.
You
The terrible problem of diagnosis. Yeah. It's easy when you've got a broken limb and you can see bones sticking out.
correct.
Apart from that, it's difficult.
Correct. So sensory difficulties or sensory processing difficulties, you would come to your friendly OT and ask them if they were sensory integration trained. There are tests to do it. So the one you might have read about was the sensory integration and praxis test, or there is a new one that's come out now. I actually don't know. It's called the EASY, but it's but so it goes through, and it is evidence-based and has been very well tested, and it actually has norms for the South African population that are slightly different than other populations, because we realized that there were things we needed to do. So some of the tests have to be scored differently for South African children. It is quite an intensive test for the child and for the person giving the test. There are also questionnaires that we would send out to the parents or the teachers and kind of get an idea. So if you don't do the formal test, which takes, 2 or 3 hours, and no one has the concentration for, there are like questionnaires that would kind of go through, are you distracted by noise? Are you constantly bumping into things because you don't really understand where your body is? Are you squinting at lights because it's overwhelming? Are you covering your ears? Like, you will see those children and those adults covering their ears. And I mean, we are lucky enough to live in a world with noise cancelling technology now, but I think about being in a crowd, being on the tube, those kind of lots of noise happening all the time.
Yes.
You will often see people,
with inputs.
Covering all with their headphones on so that they have their own sound. In terms of ADHD, that is not an occupational therapist's job to diagnose. We might be part of the process. I do think that up until very, very recently, all of the research has been about boys. And
James, naughty.
Sorry, Jess. We have a very naughty viewer.
Sorry, I also just saw that and got very distracted. And we'll bring it back. Boys, ADHD. See that. Feel like there's something happening that I'm not a part of. That's fine. I wanted the research has always been on boys.
Yes.
And I don't know that the research says girls are better, but girls certainly mask better. And
yeah,
because we've always been told, be quiet, girls are sweet, like sit down, keep your hands folded. We didn't get, and so that's very much a societal thing. We didn't get told.
Yes.
It's okay if you need a movement break. Not that boys get told that, although I hope it's coming. But yeah, we are very much expected to be, quiet and sweet and docile and
that's right. Yes.
And listen.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah, there is definitely a connection between ADHD and sensory things, obviously between autism and sensory. That's, one of the diagnostic criteria. But you can have sensory difficulties without being autistic or ADHD. And I think, there's a lot. I think all of us have, we all have sensory information coming at us all of the time. That is just how life is. Like, if you didn't have that sensory information, you would probably just be a puddle on the floor. But
it's an increasing. All have it.
It's just how we process, how we kind of understand what's happening.
But it's an increasing problem, isn't it? In the modern world, we are now being swamped with stimuli, much more so than ugh in the Stone Age might have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was one of the questions on the list I sent you. So Jess is very prepared, and she asked me for some question examples, and she put me to through the ringer because I don't normally do that. But the one question that I said I'd like to ask is whether, as an OT and as an OT working with children, I don't know what ages, do you think, what is the role of technology in sensory malfunction? And I put malfunction in quotations. Can you and I mean, you've been an OT now for at least a decade, if I'm not mistaken. Have you seen changes in children's sensory integration because of the way they are raised with technology?
Good question.
Great question. I'm just going to sort of semi-correct you and call it sensory dysfunction as opposed to malfunction, which makes it sound like the whole system is completely broken rather than...
Right.
It's kind
a
of
small
a disruption of the normal
Yeah.
functioning, which is
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
and no one is broken. Have I seen
Well,
a
I beg to
difference?
differ. There are people who are broken.
Well,
and I will not be embarrassed to say that when I'm confronted by loud music, I have a sensory malfunction. It's a full-on malfunction. There's no dysfunction there. But I get what you're saying, and words and terminology is extremely important. So dysfunction. What is the role of technology in sensory dysfunction?
so
If any.
I'm going to answer your question in a sec, but I would just say that awareness of yours of like loud noises, you're having a full-on malfunction, as you said. That is where regulation comes in. That is where the integration. So other people might have heard all those loud noises and been able to integrate, and we're still keeping calm and we're still keeping it together. For you, that's obviously really upsetting, and it kind of gets you to the point of like you're probably getting angry. You might be a bit like short and snippy with whoever is around you. You might need to just be like, I'm leaving, and go and hide somewhere quiet and re-regulate yourself. So just that. Have I seen a difference with technology? Yes, I think there is a huge reliance on technology. It's around us all the time. I think little children are often given the free babysitter of TV or a screen or an iPad, and I have seen little young children who know how to do this, and they know how to open the thing to make it bigger, and they can navigate through to find their program, and they may not have the other skills that we would love them to have for that age.
Can I just come in here, because parrots can do that? Parrots have been shown to use an iPad. They can recognize their other parrots on the screen, and they can swipe, and they can, focus on, if there's a number of small pictures, they'll tap the one with the parrot on, because they can recognize. So this is not an exclusively human characteristic.
No, but probably parrots are not as exposed to technology as
No.
And I mean, for me, like I was just reading today about, no, not reading. I saw a very interesting person speaking on how technology is being used, and actually that there isn't the research to say that every single classroom should have an electronic blackboard, whiteboard, or that every single child should have an iPad from 2 years old, whatever, and actually saying what we are doing our children a disservice. What are we should be going back to books, pencils, actual learning, not just from the computer.
That is a big issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, in Australia, they're talking about making it impossible for children under 16 to access the social media. I'm not sure how they intend to do that, but that is a regulation they are intending to bring in.
I mean, there's a big push for it, and look, technology is wonderful when it works properly, and you all set up. Do I think children should be exposed to also like free time, running around at lunchtime? Absolutely. I love handwriting, and I'm a big fan. Like, I learn better through handwriting than through typing. I think there are skills that we are losing by just putting everyone in front of the computer, in front of the screen, and it's all the exact same. And I mean, this talk I was listening to was like, there's a push in the UK to move all exams online. And
I haven't heard of that one.
or maybe from a certain age. I'm not sure how that would work. People have,
Yeah.
there's, not everyone finds technology easy. There's typing. It's not always, there's AI now, so you can just
Yes,
do.
yes.
But Jess, something as you were speaking, I was just thinking of something when you mentioned writing and that you learn and process through writing. I have a small homeschool center here in Worcester, and I have children who, when they get to me, they're 12, 13, and they can barely form letters properly. And if I think of the effect of the calming and relaxing effect of the physical action of forming
Yes.
letters,
Yes.
then I think that the problem of technology is not only in that it hampers the way in which children learn to perform the sensory integration, but do you think there's a possibility that it also inhibits them from exploring healthy ways of learning to integrate? Because they and the parents as well, they just run to technology. So when the child is upset, they give him the phone instead of perhaps moving to, and I presume that
Right.
this is the type of thing that you do, to, for example, to draw a mandala, that the rhythmic motion, it has a very calming effect on the brain, and it also, I find that I've seen, and I'm no OT, I'm just a teacher, but I've seen that if a child has a bad day and he's struggling with a maths problem, and I say, right, now we're just going to draw pictures, but draw something something geometric, for example, and I put on some music, and it's as if the action of performing that rhythmic motion sort of helps them to reintegrate, and then we go back and tackle the same maths problem, and then they're in a better space. Whereas technology often, especially teenagers and tweens, when they're upset, they reach for their phone. They don't try other things.
So do
What
adults.
so do adults. So do adults, yes, but with kids the detrimental effects can be more severe. Well, with adults I suppose too, but kids are more vulnerable because they might not know to ask for help, whereas so I just thought of that. What do you think? There's
I
any
think,
method in my madness?
yeah, I think absolutely. I think technology in those situations where it's just like, oh, the child's a little bit upset, or the adult, plonk them in front of the computer and they can do their thing. It's just easy. It's not getting to the actual understanding of that child, understanding what has happened for them to get them to be upset. It's not, I mean, certainly with adults, we're all scrolling. It's not getting you to the point of like, oh, that actually made me feel so much better. It's just taking you out of that situation for a minute, and maybe out of your own space, because you can scroll and look through other people's lives, and you don't necessarily have to be thinking about your work that you have to do it, like, it's a distraction. And
Yeah.
I think absolutely, whatever that is, whatever that child needs to regulate. And again, this is not just for children, like adults absolutely need to find ways to regulate these, like the things that I have learned about children are also applicable to adults. And like, you are probably not at your very best when you're in a loud noise and maybe you screaming at who is ever around you. Do you want to be like that? No. Would you like to be able to understand that and say, oh, actually, this is going to be too loud for me. I'm going to get upset. I don't want to be upset. What do I need to do in order to not be yelling and screaming at you? So I don't think any child wants to be like that, or any adult. some of them do. But I think it's about understanding, and yeah, like you said, kind of understanding what is the actual need that that child is expressing. So yes, they might be crying, they might be throwing toys. What is the need that is actually being expressed through that? Is it that the classroom is so loud that they can't concentrate, and so they're trying to make their own noise? Is it that their friend next to them has just grabbed their toy and now they're upset and they don't know how to kind of regulate? And then we just sit and we watch Peppa Pig and
yeah. Do you know, I would ban autoplay. You know, because you start
endless,
to watch
endless scrolling where you just there's no end. Like
you don't even need to do the scrolling; it does it for you, and you're sucked in.
Yeah.
And it cannot be a good idea, I'm afraid.
No.
You can disable it, fortunately. I found out how to do that on my phone.
Sorry, John, are you finished?
Well, I've got a couple of other points I was going to bring up, because it's come to my attention recently that there's concern over noise cancelling, because some children have these noise cancelling headphones and they're damaging their hearing, because your brain learns to distinguish specific sounds like speech from a cacophonous background. And what the noise cancelling headphones do is they remove the cacophonous background, so your brain never learns to do that.
I mean, yes, to some extent. I think noise cancelling headphones without any other input, which is often what happens. Oh, this child is distressed. Stick on the headphones and we're done. I think that without any other input, we possibly are not learning to integrate all of that sound. However, for some children, and again, for some adults, it's really hard to learn what is foreground and what is background noise, and how to be paying attention to your voice that I want to listen to because you're giving the instructions or you're telling a story or whatever is happening, versus everything else that is happening. And
it's filtering, isn't it?
It filters it. I mean, I will say, for me, working in an office with people around me, like, I am noise sensitive. I just got a pair of beautiful noise cancelling headphones. I don't like it. I don't like hearing other people on the phone. I dislike, hearing them typing. I'm like, I just want to be, like, I will put music on and it's just, I am in control of that music, and that's really important to me. I find it very distracting otherwise. So, yeah, I'm not sure what the research on that says, but
I can see the merit in teaching a child to adjust. But I think it's like you said, to me, the middle ground is perhaps a child that really struggles to focus. And I can just see, sitting in an office with other people around you, that noise cancelling earphones can be brilliant. But I also think it's important, especially with children who still have to learn things, to help them, but then use the noise cancelling headphones as an assistance. And there are situations where, like, if you have to travel on the tube, or if you're in South Africa and you have to travel in a taxi, and the music is so loud that as the taxi passes my house, my window frames rattle.
I mean, miss that.
You don't? Well, that's a good segue, because I want to ask you a few more personal questions, if that's all right, John.
Go ahead, sure.
Can I just very briefly say on the headphones thing, I think headphones for me are to be used at times when there is specifically noise and things. So, like anything, we habituate to it. So we know that deep pressure is very calming. We will often recommend like a heavy jacket or a vest or something. We've got kind of lap pad. You can put like sand in it just to make it heavy. We aren't asking to wear that 24/7 because at some point it's just normal.
Ah, okay.
What we are saying is, can you do that at the specific time? So for instance, if a child is very distressed with noise and you are transitioning from one classroom to another with the entire school all shouting and screaming and making noise and all bumping into you, can you use your noise cancelling headphones then to transition so that by the time you get to wherever you are next going, you are still in an okay state, in a calm state, that you can then be giving your attention, not necessarily that you're just from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. when you go to sleep.
The trouble is you're giving the child a great deal of discretion, aren't you? And this is worrying because, for example, a lot of schools have banned phones, completely banned them. You have to, when you arrive, you have to hand them in at registration, and you don't get them back until you leave.
Yeah.
Now, I think, because I'm always aware that there is a tendency to be a Luddite, you know, and not accept progress. And if we'd done that, we'd still be using chalk and blackboards. And the thing is that there's so much good can come out of a phone if you can get the acceptance of how it should be used.
It's used correctly.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I used to teach science, and I'd love to have had the opportunity to say, now Google, now Google calcium and find out what you can about it. But the trouble is, you're giving them the power to text their friends around the world and do all sorts of extraneous things that are not focused on the task in hand.
And to be bullied by their peers because they're all online. Yes. Agreed. And that is where hopefully parents come in and hopefully OTs come in, and we work in collaboration with what would be the best use of this? How can we best help that child to remain regulated, or, you know, help that adult who's working, who's to remain regulated, able to do their job, able to be the best parent that they want to be without absolutely freaking out and being distressed by all that noise. How can we support those people to do what they would like to be doing? So again, I don't think it's about putting on a pair of headphones for the entire day, although some children do. I think it's about education of like, what are we actually hoping to achieve with the headphones? And then understanding we're not going to just put them on because it makes it easier for us not to have a distressed child. What are we actually wanting to gain? We're wanting his attention. We're wanting that engagement from the child. It serves no purpose to have them on the whole day. So it's a fine line, and it involves understanding and education of ourselves and our teachers and our parents.
So what techniques what techniques do you offer for regulation?
For regulation, so I mean, deep pressure is the universal calming one. Almost everyone finds that calming. So that is really working into your proprioceptors. There's a lovely word for you.
Yes.
So deep pressure is proprioceptors. So I always think of it as like, for adults in particular, if you've come home, you've had you haven't had the best day, you come home, and if you have someone at home who just gives you like that proper hug, you hug them back, and you can actually go,
Yes.
and you feel a little bit better. So with adults, things like going to the gym, that's deep pressure. That's
Oh,
things like doing that running, that rhythmical movement.
Yes.
Again,
Yes.
with children, we're asking them for movement breaks. We might put a slightly heavier backpack on them. I'm not asking for like a
Yes.
massive thing that they can't stand up.
No. No.
But they can have a little bit of weight. We might do a lot of like squishes with a ball. We call them like a burrito roll, or we make hot dogs and they get squashed under all different things. It's the best thing in the whole world. I also have a music system, the Safe and Sound protocol, which is very much about kind of bringing in that calm and regulation. So it would be in connection with myself and either a child or an adult. We would be doing it together, can be done over the screen, and bringing in like it's special music that kind of just brings you down. And again, because you're in connection with someone, that creates the safety and the safe space for you and yourself.
Having a cat sit on your lap.
If you are lucky enough to have a cat sit on your lap, I have mine. He's sitting on the desk next to me.
I have
Here,
four,
Prince.
not
Here,
a single
Prince.
one of
Prince,
them will
come
ever sit
on.
on my lap. So
if you are lucky enough, like to grab your cat or have him come willingly, and he sits there, and you're doing some like nice gentle stroking. It's why you can even do like on your leg. Like you'll see when people are really anxious, they'll be rubbing their legs. It's a very calming, relaxing thing. So even things doing, a pressing hard together would be doing it. And
John's gone to fetch his cat.
I've got my evil genius cat. So I do the James Bond thing.
So Jess,
yes.
what do you miss most about your home country besides your family? Besides your family, what do you miss? Do you miss any? Maybe you don't miss anything.
I don't miss taxis. I think what I miss is the understanding, like, of having grown up with people, of having watched similar or the same TV programs, because back in the day we didn't have 25 million.
Yeah.
Kind of that understanding of being able to say something and know how it will land. Yeah, like know that if I make the joke, people are not just going to look at me like you completely lost your mind. Also, I can say things like robots and pants in South Africa and not be have complete confusion. That is a hard one for me to learn.
When was the last time you were here?
Just over a year ago, and I will be there at the end of March.
Well, I do hope that we can get together because I'll be in Cape Town. I'll talk to you later. It would be lovely to meet up in person.
It would be lovely.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, let me just get my list here.
Well, while you're getting your list, I want to know if there is a place for overstimulation, because I'm just thinking of the way cricket has changed, for example. As when I used to watch cricket as a boy, it was a very quiet event. There was an occasional crack of leather on wood. Yes, the clapping was extremely mature, remote, reduced to modest.
I think there was less alcohol.
Yes, but nowadays, if you go to a cricket match nowadays, especially a one-day game, fireworks go off when somebody hits a six. There's flames in the air. there's enormously loud music from speakers all around you, and there's a duck walks across the screen when somebody's out for having scored no runs. So sensory stimulation.
I know what you're talking about, and I'm not just like, what is this weird game? Is there a place for
for excitement?
Absolutely. I wouldn't necessarily say for overstimulation, but yes, there's different energy patterns. So there is a time when it would be absolutely appropriate to be bouncing off the walls and excited and big movements and going crazy. That time is not appropriate when you are trying to go to bed.
No.
That energy is not the, ooh, it's time for bed. Like, that is not the energy we need. Do we need that energy when maybe we're meeting our friend out and we haven't seen them in a while? Yeah. Do we need that energy when we're doing something exciting and active and fun? Absolutely. But for me, it's more about, are you able to move between those states? Are you able to understand now is not the time for screaming at the top of your lungs?
Yeah.
Because it's actually time to go to bed.
I want to make a comment here, and it's between the two of you. You've made me think of this. I had an experience a week ago where I, for the first time, attended. It was advertised as a supernatural event. So it was this very charismatic church that had an event, and out of pure 100% curiosity, I wanted to see what happens there. And you said before, Jason, and I know that's basically your mission is that you also you want to help people to understand themselves so that they can be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
And something that I'm just thinking of as I'm listening to you, and John, what you said about the cricket match, I think if more people understood more about the way our brains work, we wouldn't be so easily distracted by people and organizations that want our attention for maybe the wrong reason. So when you go to the cricket match, obviously, I don't think that's a wrong reason. That's a healthy form of socialization, and it's great, and it's fine but because everything that happens there is done to stimulate your brain in a particular way so that you will respond in a particular way.
Right.
And what struck me when I attended this evangelical event was how everything was meticulously crafted to stimulate certain parts and functions of people's brains, from the music to the volume and how the cadences moved. Sometimes it was louder, sometimes it was softer. And if more people knew what the effect of sensory input was on our brains, I think we'd be, all of us, not only in those situations, we'd be more aware of what other people want to achieve in exposing us to certain stimuli. So to me, that's something, I've never thought of it like that, but I think it's actually another level of importance about learning how our brains work. Because not only do people want to sell us things, and they use our senses to get us to respond in a particular way.
So that's very much what I'm working with is, I mean, obviously I work with children. I'm also working with adults, parents, teachers to help them understand what that might feel like for their child, to help them understand, like, okay, I've gone to the cricket, it was loud and fun and exciting, but I can't keep that up forever. So by the time I've been at the cricket for the entire day, I've eaten all the sugary foods and sat in the sun, and everyone's touched me because there's too many crowds. What do I need at the end of that? Because the choice is either I can come home and I'm now exhausted and overstimulated, and I'm going to be grumpy or tired or not want to talk to my partner or my children or something. Or I can go, that was a big day. I've used up a lot of like my own reserve. What else? What do I need? Maybe it is I need a big hug. Maybe I just need like a few minutes of quiet time without children, without anyone touching me. So yeah, for me, really understanding and helping adults understand how they can keep themselves regulated, because we all expecting regulated children, but we don't have regulated adults. So we need the connection. Yeah, that's very much what I'm working on.
A big problem here is about 100 years ago, we invented domestic electricity. And with that, away went the diurnal rhythm. Because instead of only having light from the sun or a fire, we were able to keep lights on all night. And our bodies were confused because they didn't know when to sleep. And it's got worse recently.
Computer partner next to you and watching whatever series you're watching.
Exactly. Yes. So it's got worse recently because we can now not only be kept awake by light all night, which is unnatural, but we can also communicate all night with anybody anywhere.
Right.
So what are we going to do? Help!
And then we wonder why we go to work the next day and we are grumpy and we can't follow the instructions and we don't want to because we are completely dysregulated and we've done it to ourselves maybe, but the point is like we are dysregulated. And I think for me one of the nicest things in my relationship is I've explained where I'm at, my partner has explained where they're at, and I can sometimes come home and just go, I don't have the words, I don't really want to talk, I just need a minute. And that is not taken as, oh, Jess is a terrible, grumpy person. It's just, I've been on the entire day. My brain's been going, I just need, like I've made every decision for the day, I've done everything, I just need to come home and be quiet and have my cup of tea, and then everything is fine. And so, but without that understanding, I would very much be taken as, well, I hope I wouldn't be, but possibly as like, Jess is always grumpy or Jess is tired and difficult to live with. Well, no, I'm just asking for a little understanding and I'm very happy to give that back. So I'm very happy to figure out what people need and work with that. And
it's empathy.
If you need, some people are really great with voice notes. Some people, I don't like them.
I hate them. I hate voice notes.
Apparently it's a very South African thing, but some people will give, and I can listen to a voice note when it's a friend being like, oh, I went away for the weekend and it's great. When it's a voice note with details of this is how much something costs, this is where you'll find it, you can go here, take this left. I'm like, okay, but in 3 days' time when I need that information,
you
I have to look for it. And so
when I get a voice note, I ignore it. 90% of it, I just ignore it. I cannot deal with voice notes. It's so weird.
Wouldn't it be nice if instead of just ignoring it, you could just say to your people, hey guys, I'm probably not going to respond to that. So maybe don't do that because everyone else is just like, oh, Tercia's like, I sent her a message and she doesn't even get back to me. And
my family members know
absolutely valid reasons and you're just saying this doesn't work for me. Like,
but it's so weird how these things, how speaking to somebody as knowledgeable as you are, how I see things in myself that I think, oh, okay, maybe I need to see Jess.
Well, there's a lot of new technology that we haven't really come to terms with yet.
No.
One of which is that we're almost to the end of our hour.
We are.
That is something I've grown used to in the 2 years almost now that I've been co-hosting. John is extremely strict on the time, Jess. So I'm
it
going
is
to
a
start.
good characteristic. Nothing wrong with that.
Thank you.
I've made peace, and I agree. I absolutely agree. We've taken 1 hour of your precious time, and I would like to begin in the 5 seconds that are left to me. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was lovely to get your insights, and I hope we can meet up when you're in South Africa in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely, and thank you both so much. This has been really fun.
There you go.
Is it worth me putting my details in the chat, or like?
Sure,
Please
sure.
do. Go
Yes,
ahead.
absolutely. Or give them to us to put in the details under the podcast, which is what
Fine.
this is going to become. Yeah.
That would be great, just so that we don't take more time.
To our great listener, James, I don't think you should try that pickup line. Maybe it's not going to work so well. You might get confronted with a pair of noise cancelling
maybe not on a public chat
headphones.
Yeah. I didn't screen it for that reason, James. I'm sorry. I'm the boss. I get to put things up if I like them, and not if I don't. Anyway, it's been wonderful. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you guys both so much. It's been really, really good, and I hope your listeners also enjoyed it.
And more power to your elbow, too, for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.